Chinese billionaire and CEO of Alibaba, Jack Ma, weighed in on America's job creation strategy and also let his opinions known on who's really stealing US jobs. Let's watch.
Past 30 years, the American had 13 wars, spending $14.2 trillion. The money going there. What if they spend a part of that money on building up the infrastructure, helping the white collars and blue collars? No matter how strategy good it is, you're supposed to spend money on your own people.
I don't know if I could say that better. People are constantly told there's no money for, to invest in the social safety net. There's no money to invest in public transportation. There's no money to invest in universities to train people. But there's always money for war. And in the case of the US, like Jack Ma mentioned, they spent trillions and trillions of dollars over the past 30 years on nation building, on overseas geopolitical events that most ordinary Americans can't really see much of a benefit of. I mean, do you think going into Iraq was a good idea? I mean, what did the American public gain from that? I would argue nothing. I mean, is the Middle East in better shape today than it was 10 plus years ago? I would argue it's always been a mess, but did we have ISIS in 2003? No. I mean, it's really sad that, there's so many people suffering in that country, in the US, and there's never money to help those suffering. But there seems to be a lot of money to make people overseas suffer. But I got another clip from Jack. So let's see what he has to say.
Last 10, 20 years, I heard about is Silicon Valley and Wall Street. The money go to the Wall Street. And what happened? Year 2008. The financial crisis wiped out $19.2 trillion USA alone. They wiped out all the white collars and destroyed 34 million jobs globally. So what if the money is not Wall Street? What if the money spent on the Middle East, Middle West of the United States, developing the industry there? That could be changed a lot. So it's not the other countries steal jobs from you guys. It is your strategy.
Okay,
but you do not distribute the money and things in a proper way.
I don't think it's hyperbole to say that, a strong vision and strategy is probably the government's most important asset. And in the case of the US, it's hard to argue that their strategy has not been nothing short of just disastrous. Many countries have been affected by globalization. But the ones who have been most successful are the ones who've had a plan. In the case of the US, you have the Rust Belt states, which for the longest time employed tons of people in the steel mills, in assembling together a lot of manufacturing plants and all that. But once those went away, the government basically abandoned that area. One way they could have maybe alleviated that was, okay, it's really hard for us to compete with maybe steel mills in China. Fair enough. Well, alternative energies are becoming a huge asset for any country to grasp and handle. That would be in an industry where so many coal miners could have had a new job working at a solar plant or a wind farm. But that hasn't been the case because, like he mentioned, industries such as Wall Street, Silicon Valley, big oil, they have tremendous influence on Washington. And this is particularly true considering that pretty much every new incoming administration puts a Goldman Sachs CEO or executive as the, Secretary of the Treasury. And they very much decide where the money is going to be spent. And most of the money is spent on their interests, with very little consideration of the public. And this is particularly true considering, the financial crisis. The US didn't blink an eye when it was like, okay, we need to spend trillions of dollars bailing out Wall Street. And I would argue it was important to do that. But when it comes to, hey, let's invest in the Rust Belt area to maybe create new jobs for people, it's like, whoa, how much is that going to cost? That's expensive. But $10 trillion in Iraq? Nah, no one blinked an eye. 20 trillion or so to bail out Wall Street, no one blinked an eye. But when it comes to creating a long-term sustainable strategy for the working man and woman, everyone kind of views it with a lot of skepticism, like how much is it going to cost? And like he said, it's not so much that other countries are coming in and stealing jobs. It's the government's complete inability to maybe look to where the future is going and figure out how to plant the seeds so your country can benefit from the changes coming. And this isn't just the United States, which is suffering from this poor strategy. Even where I'm from in Canada, in the wake of all we know about the oil industry, according to the latest Bloomberg reports, it could experience another oil crash in the next few years, as early as 2020 something. And we can't even be bothered to invest our pocket change in alternative forms of energy that could create a lot of prosperity, a lot of jobs, and more importantly, one of the very few industries that's expected to create higher wages around the world for a lot of people. And North America seems to be letting China lead and dominate that industry. And to Jack's final point about income distribution, the US has the widest financial gap between the richest person and the poorest person. And that doesn't mean you strive to create a society where pretty much everyone gets paid the same. No, of course not. Not only is that impossible, it probably wouldn't be good for any economy, because rich people are a very important part of sustainable growth and innovation. It's just that when you have all the income going to the top, you're basically in the situation where the US is in right now. And, Canada, for example, they say is pretty average gap between the rich and the poor. It's generally 10 to 1. But in the US, it's 500 to 1. So you can see that there's obviously a healthy medium for any country to kind of be in. But the US, on the other hand, is just on a crazy spectrum of its own. And this is also one of the reasons why many financial analysts and economists believe this next economic crash is pretty much inevitable, because you don't have a large section of the country, which is the middle class, with stable jobs, with, decent incomes and whatnot. And this is because, like Jack Ma mentioned, a poor government strategy. So there you have it. Strategy is king. Take it from Jack Ma, China's richest person. But I thought it was a pretty interesting thing to touch on. Provided a little bit of insight regarding income inequality and financial wealth distribution. But do you think Jack Ma's right? I'd love to hear reasons in support of that. Do you think he's wrong? Do you think I'm wrong? If there's anything I kind of didn't take into consideration, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.